He feared losing his home. His drinking was out of control. And as he went for a meeting at his local council offices, he knew that he'd descended into an online world of depravity.
Welcome back. I'm Cassie, and this is A Wicked World. The story I have for you today is one that might never have been solved if it weren't for an attentive and helpful 7-year-old little girl. And it's a good thing this perpetrator was caught. Not only for the family of the little girl who was murdered, but also because he definitely would have hurt other children. This is the story of April Jones. April Sue Lynn Jones was born on April 4, 2007, in Machynlleth, Wales, to her parents Coral and Paul Jones, and she was the youngest of 5 children. April had a bubbly and cheerful personality, and she had many friends at school. She loved dressing up, watching movies, especially the Disney movie Tangled, Cats, The Color Pink, and playing outside with her friends. Now, April had been born prematurely, weighing only 4 pounds 2 ounces, and she was in intensive care for the first 2 weeks of her life. Her parents would also later find out that she had a hole in her heart, as well as a heart murmur. When April was 3 years old, her parents noticed that she was becoming rather clumsy, and after bringing her to several doctor's appointments, she would end up being diagnosed with a mild form of cerebral palsy. She would constantly have leg pains, but her mother said she rarely ever moaned or complained about it. And regardless of these health issues, she was a happy child and just wanted to be a normal kid. April wouldn't let any of these problems stop her from going outside, playing with friends, and riding bikes together. So April and her family lived in the Brynigog Estates in Machynlleth. On the evening of October 1st, 2012, April would go to her swim lessons, while her mother and father attended a parents' night at her school. Afterwards, April invited a friend over to play and watch the movie Tangled together. During her friend's visit, April would plead with her parents to let them play outside, even though it was already close to 7 p.m. at this point. Her parents eventually gave in, but her mother told her that she didn't want her outside for very long. About 20 minutes later, Coral went outside to tell the girls that it was time to come back in. But when she did, she only saw April's friend, not April. And at 7:30, after still not being able to find her daughter, she frantically called 999 and reported her as missing.
I've been kidnapped. I was kidnapped with a dog. Hang on. Ralph, can you speak to somebody? Hello.
Hello there. Right, can you tell me where you are and what's actually
21
happened?
Brynigog.
21 Brynigog.
Yeah.
Where is that?
In Machynlleth.
Okay, sorry, I beg your pardon. Right. And what makes you think the dog has been kidnapped?
Apparently, what happened? Oh. She's gone off in a car with somebody. Somebody picked her up in a car or something. She's gone panicking looking.
Okay, what's the name of the child that's gone missing?
April Jones.
April, how old is she?
5.
When police got to the scene, there were no clues as to where April had gone. At first, they felt like they had been tasked in finding a child who had disappeared off the face of the earth. So, instead, they tried to speak with as many people as they could to see if anyone knew anything about where April had gone. The first officer on the scene, Fiona Evans, spoke with April's 7-year-old friend who had been playing outside with her right before she disappeared. The girl told the officer that she had seen April climb into a gray SUV, and when she did, she had a happy and smiley face on, likely meaning that she knew the person. The little girl also told police that the SUV she had seen was driven on the left-hand side, which is rather uncommon in the UK, so that was a good start. She also went on to describe the person whom she had seen driving the car, and told officers that the brother and sister of one of her friends were in the same SUV just the day before. After hearing this information from the little girl, the Dyfed Powys police immediately upgraded their investigation to a critical incident, and they also launched a massive search around Machynlleth. Additionally, hundreds of citizens would end up joining the search for 5-year-old April. It was important that police find the little girl fast, not only because victims of abduction are usually dead within hours, but also because due to her mild form of cerebral palsy, she had to take daily medication. On October 3rd, 2012, April's mother, Coral, made a desperate plea to the public for any information on her daughter's whereabouts.
It's been 36 hours since April was taken from us. There must be someone out there who knows where she is and can help the police find her. We are desperate for any news. April is only 5 years old. Please, please, help find her.
And while police were investigating the information that the 7-year-old had given them, they would find that a 46-year-old named Mark Bridger matched the physical description the girl had given. And even though it was blue, not gray, Mark had a Land Rover SUV that drove on the left side. Mark was known by April's family. Not only did some of his children go to school with her, but they were also neighbors. Mark had actually just moved in about 5 weeks prior to April's disappearance. At this time, Mark Bridger was a person of interest, and police went and searched his house and vehicle. Around the same time, Mark was seen not far from his house, walking along the riverbank with a black trash bag that looked to contain something. A witness would later say that they had seen Mark dumping this bag into the river. Additionally, he had taken his Land Rover to be repaired just hours after April had disappeared, and then he had come back to help look for the girl. Upon searching Mark's rented home, which was called Mount Pleasant, police would make some horrifying discoveries. As soon as they walked in the front door, they had been hit with an intense heat, as well as the smell of cleaner and air freshener. The cottage looked like it had recently been thoroughly cleaned as well. Additionally, officers found a pair of handcuffs and a burnt knife. Then they made their worst discovery yet: 17 fragments of burnt bone inside the wood burner that was located in the living room. And an additional bone fragment would be found in the drain of the bathtub. Following this, police set out on a hunt to find Mark Bridger in order to arrest him. And they ended up locating him walking his dog very close to his home, like he didn't have a care in the world. He was then placed under arrest and brought in for questioning. During his multiple interviews with police, Mark insisted that he had just accidentally run April over with his car. And since he had been heavily drinking, he panicked, picked her up, and placed her inside his vehicle. He claimed that he attempted CPR, but that didn't work. And after that, Mark says he doesn't remember what he did with her body. He said to police, "I didn't abduct her. I did my best to revive her. I panicked. I didn't even know until this morning who she was until I saw the television. I just wish I knew what I had done to her, where I put her. I want to say sorry to the family." He additionally added that he could not believe that he didn't call the ambulance or the police. Mark also insisted that he would have never dumped the little girl's body because she was a human being. He then became very emotional and started crying. Mark Bridger was charged with abduction, murder, and attempting to pervert the course of justice. He would additionally be charged with the unlawful concealment and disposal of a body. Now, Mark Bridger was a father of 6 to 4 different women. He also had a string of minor convictions dating back to the mid-80s. When he was only 19, he had been convicted on firearms offenses and theft. He was also convicted of criminal damage and driving while disqualified, then driving without insurance not long after. In 2004, Mark had been convicted of battery and threatening behavior. And then in 2007, he received his 5th conviction, this time for assault. When police had searched Mark's home prior to his arrest, they had found blood in the bathroom, in the hall, and on the underside of the carpet in front of the wood burner. And investigators would find that the bone fragments they had found inside this wood burner were consistent with those of a juvenile skull. And then authorities found an extensive library of CP images on his computer, along with saved Facebook pictures of local girls, including April and her sisters. Additionally, police found pictures of corpses of children and pictures from notorious murder cases of little girls. When Mark's clothing was analyzed for DNA, scientists were not able to eliminate the possibility that April had contributed DNA to a sample taken from the inside of the crotch area of his tracksuit bottoms. And disturbingly, he told police that if any of April's DNA was found on his nether regions, it was because he had taken a wee while he was carrying her. And Mark would not disclose where he had disposed of April's body. No additional pieces of her body have ever been found. Therefore, investigators were unable to piece together exactly what had happened to the little girl that night. They do, however, believe that after Mark had abducted her, he had SA'd her, either in a remote location or in his cottage. After that, they believe he ended her life, either by smothering her or by other means. He had then dismembered her body and scattered it in various places. Mark had previously worked at a slaughterhouse and was an outdoorsman with a vast knowledge of the mountains and valleys in the area, which meant he was likely easily able to conceal April's remains. Given all the horrible images that police had found on Mark's computer, they believed that April's abduction was premeditated, though they didn't necessarily believe that April was Mark's specific target. The theory is that Mark Bridger was losing control of his life, and April just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. Apparently, Mark had just recently split up with his partner, Vicky Fenner, was having financial problems, and feared losing his home. And on the morning of October 1st, prior to abducting April, there were text messages found between Mark and Vicky, in which Vicky tells him that she can no longer be in a relationship with him. So Mark had then taken the day off of work, and spent part of it asking multiple women out on dates. He had also been looking at least one image of cartoon CP that day, in which the subject was bound with duct tape. And when Mark's vehicle was later searched, they found a roll of duct tape. Shortly before 5 p.m. that day, on October 1st, Mark had driven his Land Rover 3 miles from his home to Mackinac in order to attend the parents' night, the same one that April's parents were attending. With him, Mark had brought his computer and had been browsing the internet. But since he had a security dongle hooked up to it, it's unknown exactly what he was looking at. After the parents' meeting was over, Mark had left and then began prowling the streets looking for a victim. He would roll down the window of his Land Rover and ask one of his daughter's 10-year-old friends to come over for a sleepover. But lucky for this girl, the plans never panned out. There had been multiple witnesses who had seen Mark that night driving up and down the same stretch of road. And one witness had said that she had seen him dressed in camouflage trousers walking near a set of garages. Mark had walked right past this witness without even acknowledging her. She thought that this was rather odd because in the past, Mark had been very polite, but he seemed to be in his own little world at the time. So at 7 p.m., Mark was sitting in his car parked near the garages, and by 7:20 p.m., he was already headed out of town with April in his Land Rover. The next confirmed sighting of Mark's vehicle had been about an hour and 20 minutes after that. At about 8:30 p.m., when a neighbor had seen him reversing in his driveway. Police believed that he had then spent the rest of the night trying to get rid of any traces of April, as well as sterilizing and cleaning all the knives he had used. The search for April's body continued throughout the winter and would become one of the biggest in British history. More equipment, including drones, were brought in. And the police even used dogs to search mine shafts and cave systems. In January of 2013, Mark pleaded not guilty to the charge of murdering April, but accepted that he was probably responsible for her death. He was still sticking with his story that he had accidentally run her over with his car. But in April of 2013, Mark Bridger was found guilty on all his charges. He was sentenced to life in prison and is unlikely to ever be released. And after the verdict was read, it was revealed that Mark had confessed to a prison priest that he had disposed of April's body in the river. So that might have been what the witness had seen him dumping that day. The same month that Mark was found guilty of his crimes, police announced that their search for April had officially come to an end. And only a few weeks after he was sentenced and sent to prison, Mark was actually attacked by another prisoner with a shank. This had resulted in facial and throat injuries for Mark, but none of them very severe because he was later returned back to the general population. Then in November of 2014, over 2 years after her murder had occurred, the home where April had met her untimely death was demolished. The government had actually bought it with the promise to tear it down, hoping it would bring some closure to not only her family, but also the community. April's parents were relieved that the House of Evil, as they called it, was now gone. And they said that it had been very difficult to walk by the house all the time because it constantly reminded them of what their daughter had gone through. A funeral for April was finally held nearly a year after her murder. Her parents buried the very few remains of her that they did have. April's services took place on September 26, 2013, at St. Peter's Church in Machynlleth. Her body had been transported to the church via a horse-drawn carriage, and many in attendance wore April's favorite color, pink. Well, thank you for listening to April's story today. This is an absolutely monstrous crime, especially to be committed by a father of 6. It sounds like he sat on his computer all day, struck out with women, then looked at disgusting pictures of children, and decided he didn't want to control his sick urges anymore, so went out prowling. And he used the fact that April knew his children to his advantage to trick her. Monsters like this deserve the death penalty. So if you like true crime and you want to hear it from me, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. And turn on your notifications too, so you'll know when I upload a new video, which is at least once every week. Thanks for watching A Wicked World today. Until next time, take care guys. Bye. Thank you to all the patrons of A Wicked World. Now, there's even more of A Wicked World on Patreon. So check it out at patreon.com/awickedworld or use the Patreon app. You'll have access to exclusive videos each month and more. Any support truly helps to make sure the victims never get forgotten and to highlight the shortcomings of society associated with each case. Also, if you haven't yet, go check out my new channel, Wicked Ways. Do you have a suggestion for a case you'd like to see me cover? If so, send me an email at awickedworldtruecrime@gmail.com.